But 9/11 pushed forth a new generation of truth seekers. They opened up Pandora's box with 9/11 is what they did, you know. And I'm sure they foresaw this coming. But anyway, regardless of that, we are here as a result, pushing back on the establishment, pushing back on the quote unquote deep state or whomever perpetrated the events that took place on September 11th, 2001 here in New York City. I have a major problem with those people as a result. I have a major problem with them anyway. But I have a major problem with what went down on that day. And as has become customary here on the Infinite Fringe, as soon as we get close to September 11th, I have to call Mr. Richard Gage to come in and give me a shout and let me know what is going on in his world and what he's doing to push, because the push continues. Even though it doesn't get the coverage that it used to, the push continues. I want to reassure you of that. And as long as any of us are alive and as long as we have offspring, it will continue. There's no way to put the genie back in the bottle. It's over. Just me. I'm going to introduce Mr. Gage in just a second. Jimmy Jean is hanging with me today. JG, tell these people what's up.
Well, Billy, I am doing fantastic, and I am riding the square wave through the ether space in the third dimension to come right here at True Frequency Radio right here at this moment. And there's 18-year-olds out there today that don't know what it's like to live in a country that's not locked down like a prison or some sort of a free-range prison with all the technology and the security advantages that the government's put in place to protect us from the terrorism that supposedly took our freedoms on 9/11, Billy.
No, I'm with you 100%, man. And the sad part about it is they don't even realize it because they don't know what else. It's like kind of you. I mean, you're a bit older than me, JG, and then I came into this world and I was born into this system, and there's some things that I just don't know how to live without, right? Because, I've been conditioned to accept it from birth. And it's the same way with the current generation, and the generations that will follow will find themselves in even, I hate to say it, even bigger prison. And a lot of it 9/11 has been used as, has been given the blame for this, or used as a reason to put forth these rules, this draconian environment that we currently live in. Mr. Richard Gage is here with us today. He's kind enough to give us some time. He's here in New York City, had an event yesterday. The guy is on his grind year after year after year. And regardless, whether you agree or disagree, you have to respect the hustle. 100%. Mr. Richard Gage, architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. Welcome back to the Infinite Fringe. How are you? Mr.
There
Gage,
we are.
There you
Hey,
go.
I was muted there. I'm doing great, Billy Ray and Jimmy Jean. Thanks for having this important topic on your show. I mean, it takes courage to stand up for truth sometimes when 80% of the American public is sleeping and programmed by our media about 9/11.
Yeah, and we knew this was going to happen. After you see what happens with JFK and all these other false flags that have happened as a result later on. So we knew that they were going to have their spin. But I think now in 2019, it's almost common knowledge to people. Now, how many of those people are taking action is a different thing. But it's almost common knowledge that the official story is a bunch of nonsense, Mr. Gage.
It is. I'm shocked at how many people I actually tell. I don't have to cringe anymore when I start talking about 9/11 or ask a question about it. People go, "Oh yeah, I knew about that," and I'm just out there walking around, and so one time one of them said, "Did you hear about all those architects and engineers?" And I'm going, "Wow, things are changing. There's an awareness out there." So I'm here in New York right now. We gave a great a set of presentations at a conference called Front and Center. And it was put on by the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry. They invited us from Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, and several others, Gary Null and Mark Crispin Miller from New York University. It was a powerful meeting. It also had, for the first time, Christopher Gioia from the Franklin Square Munson Fire District, a town in New York. And all 5 of the fire commissioners voted unanimously for a new investigation of the events of 9/11 based on the evidence that we're going to be talking about today, the forensic evidence for the explosive destruction of all 3 World Trade Center skyscrapers. So now we've got fire commissioners in uniform on our side going down to Washington, D.C. with us on the 11th after the press conference at the National Press Club announcing their resolution, announcing all kinds of new things, which we're going to be talking about today, and then going to visit the congresspersons. I think we have 3 actual congresspersons and a couple of dozen appointments with staffers to tell them about the Bobby McIlvaine Act for a new investigation. It's going to be one heck of a September 11th for us and for the congresspersons.
It sounds like we're making a bit of headway, and a lot of thanks need to be thrown your way for this, and so many different people with everything that's gone down, and actually a new investigation. How do you feel about it? Well, I know you're happy about it, but what kind of progress do you see coming out of this?
All kinds of progress. I'm very happy, and we're also having at this time the release of the 4-year, $300,000 study, a computer modeling study from the University of Alaska in Fairbanks. One of the top forensic structural engineers in the country, Leroy Halsey. He and his he's a PhD, and his other PhD candidates spent all this time for years reviewing Building 7's collapse. And now they have concluded that the NIST report, this is the way you can read it, it's a complete fraud. Yeah. It's filled with errors and invalid assumptions and mistakes as well. And Building 7, the conclusion is, did not come down due to fire, could not possibly have come down due to fire ever. In fact, the only way it could come down the way it did, the way we have in the videos, which shows, by the way, Building 7 coming down. For those of your guests who are not yet familiar with Building 7, here's a 47-story skyscraper whose collapse on the afternoon of 9/11 exhibits all the features of an explosive demolition, just like the old hotels in Las Vegas. After witnesses, in fact, hear explosions, this building drops like a rock straight down, uniformly, symmetrically, into its own footprint in under 7 seconds at free fall acceleration, as fast as a bowling ball falling out of the sky. So that can only happen if you remove all the columns at once on every floor for at least 8 floors. And guess what? That's exactly what Professor Halsey and his team had to do to this building to finally get it to collapse. Wow. And they removed 600 columns at once, and the building drops like a rock, just like you see in the video. So they've proven the complete unviability of the NIST report and the that this building can now buy explosives.
Man, it's insane, you know, and no matter, it's been a long time since September 11th, but no matter how many times I see the footage, it still sends the chills up my spine, because it's clear something is wrong. And I'm not an architect, I'm not an engineer, you know, that's your area, but to have so many people, over 3,000 architects and engineers, subscribe to what you're saying in some way, shape, or form, something's up. You know, I mean, that's a lot of architects and engineers. I want to get Jimmy in here for some thoughts real quick, but absolutely something's up, and we all already knew that. And what's commendable about Mr. Gage, and I want to get your thoughts on this after I get to Jimmy, is you just come back year after year after year, relentless, after so many people have faded out, and you know, today's news cycle is here today, gone today. You know, how many people are talking about Jeffrey Epstein right now? You know, that was the thing Jeffrey Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein. No one is saying a word about Jeffrey Epstein anymore. That's how quick it goes, you know? But you and others are doing your best to try to keep the memory of September 11th alive and well. Not the memory of the event, but the memory of the official story being a complete and total fraud, which is exactly what it is. Jimmy G, and I'm going to get you in here real quick. If you have any questions for Mr. Gage, now's the time to get it out. Otherwise, just give me your thoughts. Go ahead, sir.
Well, yeah, I mean, this was a pivotal moment, in the United States, obviously, in the history of the United States, and obviously it was a pivotal moment in the history of physics, because for some reason you had all these buildings that were built to withstand the strike of a plane similar to the size of the ones that hit it. And yet the same temperature fire in the building that you would see in the barbecue at your house seemed to destroy buildings in a manner that looked exactly like controlled demolition. That was the first thing that I saw. It almost sounds like controlled demolition right now. I don't know what that is, but...
You're right. There's some background noise going on. I don't know what it is either.
Oh, was that me moving my microphone? Sorry.
It might have been, but I mean, it was a good sound effect because what we were talking about is the film of 9/11 looking like controlled demolition. That was the first thing that I noticed when I saw what happened that day. And yeah, Billy, we were beat over the head and traumatized. They call that. There's some ways that you can modify the behavior of human beings by traumatizing them over and over again in certain ways. And one of those ways is to show them pictures of an emotional or horrible event over and over again. And I have to say, I was traumatized by those buildings going down and what happened. But I was more traumatized by the subsequent events that happened, Billy, because, America didn't look the same after 9/11. They said if they didn't like our freedoms, and so I guess the answer was what, to take them away. And then they said, well, we got to fight them over there, so we don't got to fight them over here. Okay, so then people signed on to doing that, but yet we're over here fighting them over here now. It seems like everybody in America is a terrorist of some kind at this point because we're on surveillance like we've never been. But
the surveillance state continues, and they keep building and growing on the name of security, right? In the name of security, and it all goes back to September 11th. I mean, I'm sure you can make an argument that it was there before that, but September 11th really pushed it over the edge. Mr. Gage, why you keep doing it? Why, they tell people all the time, right? Like I go to shows and. I mean, this is a bad analogy, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it anyway. I go to rock shows and they ask these people, these rock and roll acts, why do you keep talking about, why do you keep playing the same song over and over again because people want to hear it? Do you get tired of it? Whatever. You keep going. You just keep going, and I gotta admire you. Like every year, I go out since 2005 and do activism on at Ground Zero every year, September 11th. I haven't missed since 2005. It is almost a certainty that you will have a presence in New York in some way, shape, or form in the days leading up, if not the day of 9/11. Why do you keep doing it, man?
I can't stop telling the truth because the lie has to be refuted. My big motivator was that I was angry. I mean, when I realized that the biggest lie in the world that most of us fell for, you can't do that to me. No, I mean, that's where I draw the line, right? I hadn't heard any alternative theory before 2006 when I was driving my van back from the construction observation site and listening to David Ray Griffin on the radio, and he's telling me about this third tower that collapsed. I knew nothing about it, and all of this evidence for the twin towers. I felt like my world was just caving in on itself. What could be happening to me? This has to be a lie. This old man is telling. He can't be telling the truth. But I researched it. I mean, he was speaking in town the next day at the Grand Lake Theater in Oakland, and I had to go and find out. There were 600 people there. I couldn't even get in. I was turned away. I had to go home and listen on the live stream. And I did some research, and I thought, my God, they're really telling the truth. The media really lied to us about all this stuff that we didn't know about. You can only find out about it on the internet. I mean, YouTube wasn't even around back then. And so I put together a PowerPoint from from Stephen Jones, another researcher who was telling the truth back then. And I took it to my firm, architecture firm in Walnut Creek. And the 15 guys I was working with, they kind of thought I was nuts. But then I bought them pizza and made them watch this presentation over 45 minutes. And then all of them, by God, agreed with me. Oh, my God, you're right. These are controlled demolitions. You can just see it. Once you're presented with the evidence, you can't deny it. And so the success that I have with it's generally 95% by a show of hands, people end up agreeing that these are controlled demolitions. They want a new investigation. And I'm talking 24 foreign countries now, and over 100 American cities with groups up to 4,000 and 600 radio interviews. It's unbelievable, the response to the actual evidence, which is why I really want to get into it here with your audience so that they can actually walk away with some materials that they can share with people that are actually forensic evidence and eyewitness testimony here.
Absolutely. And we have about, 7 minutes to this side of the broadcast. So I want to get into the heavy evidence on the second side of the broadcast. That way you're uninterrupted and you can just go and take as long as you want. Right now, I want you to take the time and let everybody know what's going on for the remainder of the September 11th activism that you're going to be doing. I know you touched on it a little bit in the beginning, but I want everybody to know what you're doing, where they can reach you, how they can find you, the whole deal. Take your time. We have it. So go ahead.
Yes, we have a website. It's called ae911truth.org. And we have a lot of evidence on that website if people want to go into it more deeply. And it's an extraordinary, the DVD we made, 9/11 Explosive Evidence Experts Speak Out. It's free on YouTube. People can watch it. They can get the DVD at our online store. There's another online resource just about Building 7. It's called Solving the Mystery of World Trade Center Building 7 with Ed Asner. Solving the Mystery brings it up. Ed Asner narrates it. It's just 15 minutes on Building 7 alone, made for PBS. An extraordinary, well-made little documentary. So that's, and there's a 55-page booklet too people can download for free at our website, beyondmisinformation.org.
Incredible stuff, Mr. Gage. We commend you for it. Thank you for everything you're doing. I want everybody to remember that that event is probably the reason that Truth Frequency Radio is here. I'm not 100% sure, but probably it almost definitely had something to do with it. It's definitely the reason that I'm here talking to you right now. So many people were awakened because of this event, but we have to keep it going. We have to keep it going, right? I would love to see people held accountable. I would love to get to the bottom of who actually did this. Will we ever find that out? I don't know, man. But at the very least, we can let everyone know that we are being lied to. This is the Rosetta Stone of all the nonsense that's going on around us. If they're lying to us about this, what else are they lying to us about? It's very simple, okay? And we can see right through it if given the proper evidence. You just lay it out there and look, here's the deal. This is what you're being lied to about. That's what I like to do when I'm doing activism out in the street. I don't try to take sides. I'm like, here's what you're being lied to about. This is what you were told. And here's some information that counters what you were told. And people hit me up about the structures. I told them go to 9/11 architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth, and they'll set you straight on all of that. Because I'm not an architect, but I mean I can read the material and I can try to push it forth myself. But people want to hear it from the horse's mouth, right? They're like, well, you're not an architect. Who are you? Well, send them over to Mr. Gage, and they'll have a hell of a time trying to prove him wrong. Jimmy, tell us something before we get up out of here to the next side. Come on.
Oh, man.
Jimmy, you're around.
Yeah, I'm still here. I was just sitting here thinking, I mean, Richard Gage has done so much work over the years, really, and I think the first time that I might have even heard him might have been on the Alex Jones show, and I know Alex Jones had made a movie, 9/11: The Road to Tyranny, and I saw that, like, somebody put a videotape of it on a PBS channel, and I saw a grainy version of it on actual TV before there was a real big internet presence for Alex, and that was how I really got introduced to the whole alternative media. Really, was through that movie that Alex had put out so early. I mean, it's a really rough movie, but then subsequently you had the other movies that came out. What was the second one? You had the guy on the show that helped make that. What was the second movie that came out?
Loose Change with Jason Bermas and Dylan Avery.
Yeah, exactly. Loose Change. You had Jason Bermas on just recently. You know, these movies were instrumental in waking a lot of people up, and I think you're 100% right, because the alternative media, for the most part, did not exist before 9/11. I mean, 9/11 is responsible for that, but at the same time, the alternative media is responsible for people being able to walk up to Mr. Gage and thank him for his work, because, you know, I mean, you know, so much has been done since day one, since this happened, and I just want to personally thank you too, Mr. Gage, for all you've done, not just on this issue, but on other issues as well.
Oh, absolutely, man. Thank you, Mr. Gage. And the bottom line is this, man. Like, I don't want to be here talking to you about any of this. I really freaking don't. You know, and I'm sure Mr. Gage would have tons of other stuff to do with his life. You know, I'm sure he doesn't want to be investigating some freaking fraudulent story that the government feeds us about 3,000 people and 2 buildings coming down, 3,000 people dying. I'm sure he doesn't want to do this. On the next side, we're going to get into the evidence, right? We're going to talk about all the evidence. He's going to have a floor. He can say whatever the hell he wants. I want you guys to do something. Do it for me. Do it for yourselves, actually. Don't even do it for me. Do it for your relative, for your moms, for your kids, and get the word out about what happened on September 11th. Do a little bit of 9/11 activism. If you need to email somebody, email somebody. If you have social media, post something on social media. If you want to hand out some flyers, go do it. But you need to do something. We can't let this die. We have to continue. We have to move forward. And this is the thing that justifies their imprisonment of us. This is it. They go back to 9/11. The Department of Homeland Security, right, is due strictly on 9/11. The Patriot Act, right? ICE, all of this stuff. I mean, you guys can take any position you want on ICE. It happened after 9/11, as a result of 9/11. It is what it is. Okay, and we definitely have some things to sort out here. Anyway, this is the Infinite Fringe. My name is Billy Ray Valentine. My guest, Richard Gage, architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. Jimmy Jean is hanging. He's in the Infinite Fringe couch right now. Shoot the Moon NYC. Don't forget it. Please come take a look. All right, Eventbrite. I'm gonna drop a link in the chat for all of you. We'll see you guys on the other side. 9/11 Truth. Investigate 9/11.
The reviews for Extendivite are amazing. Here are some from Amazon. September 2018.